It's been, quite some time since I made a fixed blade video. Once upon a time, this channel was all about fixed blades. There was not a single folder or axe or saw or anything like that to be seen, just fixed blades. And I still have to admit that I am a fixed blade person by heart, but I've also really opened up the door to folders. I mean, it's just take a look at the channel and you will see that I do have quite a lot of folders in quite a bit of a big variety in terms of shape, size, materials, makers and brands, etc. I guess I like or love all kinds of bladed tools, be it knives, axes, fixed blades, folders, etc. So that being said, it's still quite a long time since I made a fixed blade video, and I actually made a video about MKM Makro 1 and 2 about, well, it's got to be almost 2 years ago. So it's quite interesting now to finally pick up the larger sized, still quite small knife, Makro 1 and 2. I will of course compare the knives with each other. One could believe that this is the Makro 1, and this is the Makro 1, for example, but it's not. This is actually the KYDEX accessory or KYDEX system for the Makro 1 and 2. So we're going to take a look at those as well and can take them away for now. But what we're going to do now is that we're going to do a a typical unboxing and take a look at the knives, the materials, the overall design and the specs and everything like that. So let's begin with the unboxing, and we're gonna go with unboxing the Makro 1 and then the Makro 2. So typical MKM boxing, identical box, just a bit larger of course than what came with the Makro. And if you look here at the text, it should say something like MKM Makro 1 drop point and green micarta. I'm going with the same kind of configuration in terms of scale material. So let's open the box up to reveal the contents. It's pretty, pretty straightforward, very much like it was with the Makro as well. So we get some random paperwork here, some warranty stuff and security warning, maintenance, kind of boring stuff. We also get a tool here so that we can remove the scales of the knife should we want to. Some might want to go with a more skeletonized version. Then you could just buy the skeletonized version to begin with. But if you want to do some perhaps cleaning or just change it up in some way, then you get a small Torx tool here. Nothing really special. Here we have the knife and the sheath. Obviously it is quite magnetic, both for the retention of the knife, but also, let's put the knife aside here, also for the carrying, since the belt loop is magnetic. Pretty sturdy leather. Nice stitching or sewing here, pin at the very bottom here, MKM logo on the back side of the belt loop. Yeah, overall it feels good. So, and the knife itself comes with this paper thing here covering the blade. So let's start by trying it in the sheath here so that we can remove the sheath from the table. So good retention. Nice fit. Like I said, it feels like a solid leather sheath. Leather sheet was the standard with the Makro as well. But this time we can also upgrade with upgrade. You can get an additional KYDEX sheath should you want that, if you find that to be an upgrade. But the sheath feels sturdy and good. So here is the knife itself. The MKM Makro drop point. I'm thinking here if I should perhaps, let's do a quick unboxing of the Makro tool right away. So it's gonna be the very same thing here. Identical contents, sheath, knife, paperwork, tool. Let's try this sheath out as well. Yeah. Nice snug fit. No shaking loose here. So now we have both two knives sort of side by side. We got the Makro one with the drop point and the Makro 2 with the sheep's foot. Which one is the better knife? I'm not going to say in this video because it's going to be up to personal preferences and tasks used. But to me personally, I prefer the MKM Makro 1, but I'm not saying it is the better knife. It's just what I personally prefer in terms of blade shape, blade design. But let's go over the specifications now. So, first off, materials. Green canvas micarta, removable scales. M390 blade steel, much the same as on the Makro as well. And that is one of my favorite steels, especially for folders, but also for certain fixed blades. Especially smaller size fixed blades like this specific knife. So we got a overall length here of, I believe, to be 166 millimeters. So 16.6 centimeters in total length. We've got a blade length of 43 millimeters, so 4.3 centimeters. Not a very large knife, but that just says, how small the Makro actually is. And we're going to take a look at that. We're going to compare this knife to quite a few other smaller knives to give a good perspective of the size here. So the blade thickness of this one, I believe, is 4 millimeters. So it is a compact, stout little blade. We've got a crown spine, and also got some jimping, and some jimping here on the back part. Got a lanyard hole here, or extended lanyard, also rounded. And it goes into this tapering here. Sure how visible it is. I mean, it really is just a upscaled version of the Makro. So if you have a Makro 1 or Makro 2, just imagine it being slightly larger in every sense of the word. We've got the Vox logo, Jesper Voxnas, great designer of both fixed blades and folders. And we've got the MKM logo, and the blade steel should also be specified right there. Got a full flat grind. In terms of ergo, so I wear size 10, fairly large hands. Placing the knife like this in my hand. almost like if it was, custom made from my hand. The jimping, the placement of the jimping, I gotta say, is really good, that they placed it a little bit further down the spine and not, like here, because the jimping wouldn't have been as useful up here. The jimping is not super aggressive, but you do get a bit of, traction or friction here, securing the knife quite a bit better, or a little bit better at least. The jimping on the back side, I'm not really sure, when that would come in, handy, but well, it is there. In a reverse grip, I mean, feels kind of good in a reverse grip, but you will rarely, use it in this type of grip, I would imagine. But for those that are curious, yes, it feels good in a reverse grip. The balance point here of the knife, I would hope it to be here around, at the finger choil, or not choil, the finger groove, we should say. Yeah, and the balance point is right here at the finger groove, where we want it to be. So I think also, yeah, the weight of the knife is 66 grams, so it's, pretty light knife. And I've got to say, once again, the ergos are actually, it's really good. Feels, really, really nice in hand. Surprisingly nice. I'm gonna talk ergos more, comparing it to some other knives. I mean, I did make a Viper Barrows 1 and 2 video. It was also must have been 1.5 years ago, perhaps. And I do remember saying that the ergos of that knife, I know that I do like the ergos of the Viper Barrows 1 and 2 quite a lot, but I think that the ergos is actually even better on the Makro. Yeah. So let's take a closer look here at the Makro 2 as well. So the specifications are identical in terms of, overall length, blade thickness, the placement of the jimping, the crown spine, pretty much everything. Balance point is of course the same as well. The blade shape, however, is quite different since this is a sheep's foot. But I still want us to get a good look here at this model as well. And like I stated, I'll say it once again, no design is, better than the other. It's going to be, personal preferences, what you like to do and how you want to use the knife and for certain tasks, etc. So, Makro 2. Let's test the cutting edge of these two tools. I remember that the Makro 1 and 2 was quite sharp out of the box, and they are still quite sharp, but I might have put them on the strop since I've used the Makro 1 and 2 quite a lot in the past almost 2 years. But let's test out the factory edge here of the Makro 1 and 2. It's now time to do some slicing of different types of paper, and I will say that MKM are usually quite good and consistent in putting on really sharp edges on their knives, be it fixed plates or folders. So I hope that both the knives will slice the paper with ease, and we're gonna try both of them, alternate little, and just to see that the consistency is there. We're gonna start with the Makro, and we're gonna start with the printing paper as always. Then we're gonna move on to the magazine paper, and then we're gonna finish it off with some newspaper. But printing paper to begin with. I mean, it will slice the paper, but I was kind of expecting it to be a hair sharper. Let's try out the Makro 2 next here. Yeah, the Makro 2 was actually quite a bit sharper. A lot sharper, even. Well, I mean, still the Makro 1 will slice paper. It just wasn't, you know, really as sharp, but still, you know, sufficiently sharp, I guess you could say. So overall, I will say that the two knives passed the printing paper test, with the Makro 2 having the upper hand. Let's proceed to the magazine paper. Let's just grab a random page. Let's see. Yeah. So the Makro 1 will slice the magazine paper, and with, you know, pretty good ease. Provide to be a little less of a challenge compared to the printing paper. Then again, it's a very different kind of paper, a bit more, you know, laminated paper of sorts. Let's go with the Makro 2 next. I will say that the Makro 2 does have, you know, cleaner, smoother cuts. Oops, compared to the Makro 1. But I mean, there's no surprise in that, because we saw it already with the printing paper. So no real surprise. Yeah, I mean, you kind of get the picture there. So yeah, nice, smooth, effortless, clean cuts using the Makro 2. Last but not least, we have the newspaper. So let's go with that. We're gonna try the Makro 1 first. So I mean, it will slice it somewhat, but it's not really, you know, not really top of the class. Not bad either, but yeah, let's see how this compares to the Makro 2. But yeah, I mean, it will slice newspaper. Wasn't super clean, but it definitely will slice newspaper. So let's go with Makro 2 now. So once again we are seeing much cleaner, nicer cuts using the Makro 2. Not saying once again that the Makro 1 had a bad factory edge. It's just that the Makro 2 has a better edge from the factory. So I mean, MKM are usually quite consistent, and I mean I've never had a knife come from them that wasn't sharp. But as you can see, there are of course different levels of sharpness, so to say. But overall, both knife definitely passes the paper slicing test, with the Makro 2 having the upper hand. Let's do some other cutting tasks. Next up, we're gonna do another classic example of cutting tasks for my channel. So we just did the paper cutting. Now we're gonna do some paracord cutting and leather cutting. And we're gonna start with the paracord and then go into the leather. So first off, we're gonna do a sort of a control cut using just one string of cord here, using the Makro 1 first. So that was quite easy. Let's do the very same thing with the Makro 2. Yeah, super easy as well. Let's do a couple of chords next here. And I'm gonna use the Makro 2 for this, since I know it is a little bit sharper, and I want to use the Makro 1 for the piercing of the leather, because I think that it's more suited for that. So here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 strings of chords to cut through here with the Makro 2. Let's see. Like this perhaps. Yeah, let's see how this goes. And we got through them all nicely. Pretty good cuts overall. So yeah, this one will cut through paracord, if that is what you intend to do with your knife. Let's move on to the leather. Start with this piece. So with the leather here, I decided to go with the Makro 1 because it has a better tip for piercing the leather. But now that I think about it, maybe we should use the Makro 2 as well, just to, get an idea. But let's see, penetrates the leather easily, cuts through quite nice. Let's try the Makro 2 as well. I mean, you still have, even if it is a sheep's foot design, you still have a bit of a tip here. So yeah, I mean, it does penetrate the leather as well. Let's cut some pieces off like this. And perhaps it's the tiniest of leather here, so not much of a real test, right? Let's do like this instead. Yeah, not very challenging. That was actually a little bit more challenging. Let's go with this one here. See how we can perform. yeah, it was actually a pretty decent cut. Let's go with Makro 2 as well. Yeah, I mean, you can really feel the difference in sharpness, especially when doing these sorts of cuts, using the Makro 2 compared to the Makro 1. I mean, the Makro 1 still will slice through, but it just feels a lot better using the Makro 2. But you know, it will slice through actually quite nicely. That one felt pretty good. So I mean, overall, in terms of slicing and piercing leather, both knives will actually do quite a good job. And the paracord as well, yeah, I mean, slice through the paracord pretty good too. So yeah, the knives will cut different stuff. I decided to throw in a bit of a tomato slicing test. I didn't have a whole lot of vegetables in my fridge, and well, this is all I could come up with, but still it makes for a fun little slicing test of sorts. So let's start with 2 for the Makro 1 and 2 for the Makro 2. So let's do a bit of slicing here. Just, you know, see how it cuts through the tomato peel, because tomato peel is actually a pretty good slicing test in my opinion. And yeah, I mean, despite being the less sharp knife, it is still absolutely sharp enough to slice this tomato. So let's, yeah, I mean, we already know it is going to be the sharper knife, but still gonna do some test cuts here. Yep. So not much of a real food prep test, but I think it's always nice to include a tomato test, because tomato peel can be tricky for some knives and some edges, and here we see that these two will handle it. I kind of want to throw in some, you know, woodwork of sorts, so we're gonna do some indoor feather sticking of some random piece of wood here. So yeah, and I'm gonna start with the Makro 1 and I'm gonna go Makro 2, as always. Random piece of wood. Let's see what we can do. Is this... maybe I should actually zoom in a little bit. So we got some, you know, tiny feathers of sorts. Now let's continue. I mean, they're tiny, but they are feathers, right? Yeah, I don't know. Let's see here. So I mean, we got some feathers. Actually, yeah, some nice ones. See if we can make some with the Makro 2 as well. Let's see. Yeah. Oops. You know what? Maybe this is not really the best piece. Yeah, some random feathers. I really don't like standing in this position. I would like to perhaps be in another spot when making feathers, but I mean, this is for YouTube, so yeah, just, you know, trying to make some feathers. That we did. Let's see if we can remove them. Some bonus feathers. Whoops. Yeah, well, I mean, I did remove them, but I hope I can find them. Oh, here's the little feather bouquet of sorts. I mean, tiny feather test of sorts on a random piece of wood. Could have found a better piece perhaps, but making small feathers is doable. Before we proceed to some interesting comparisons, I want to take a look at the KYDEX sheets here. So I want to say right away, don't consider these, you know, necessarily an upgrade. I mean, if you like leather sheets, these will do just fine. I mean, these are of high quality, as I have already mentioned. But if you do prefer KYDEX sheet, it's always nice to have the option, right? So let's take a look at what we get here. So this is the one for the Makro 1 and this is one for the Makro 2. Let's do a bit of an unboxing as well here, I guess. So opening the box up, we have a small KYDEX. We have some leather. We've got some, this has got to be an ulti clip, yeah. We got some leather, what do you call this, like scout carry clips or belt loops perhaps. And then we have a, let's remove the box. So Makro KYDEX sheath kit. Yeah, we got leather lace for neck carry, ulti clip slim 2.2. We got two mounting screws and spacers for ulti clip and leather laces. Leather laces for belt carry. Then we got some warranty information and some pictures of how to carry the KYDEX. So let's take a look at the leather here. For neck carry, black leather, lace. Feels sturdy. And then we have the belt, leather pieces, and then we have the the ulti clip and some screws for it. So a couple of different options depending on how you like to carry it. And let's test the retention. So this is the Makro 1. Let's hope it fits now, shall we? Absolutely no rattling. Yeah, really good retention. And I do like the little thumb placement here for, you know, getting the knife out. I mean, I like the leather sheath, but I thought it would be interesting to show this in the video. And you know, sometimes it is actually a good thing to have a KYDEX system as well, so might end up using this quite a bit. Let's try the one for the Makro 2 as well. I mean, we knew already that we're gonna see the exact same contents, pretty much, you know, included the ulti clip, etc. Well, it was actually in a little bit different of a bag. That's interesting. But same thing, same leather lace. I should probably have it up there. Yeah, I didn't show it here, but it came in a different bag with the screws loose together with the clip. Not sure why that is. Got sheath and the two belt things. Oh, this one is actually not. You know, you pierce through here, you know, the holes. You want it to look like this. And like these two. But here we can see that they actually didn't get it through entirely. Wonder if we can do it by hand. Give me a second here. I have no tools for this with me here. Let's see. I'm actually gonna have to take care of that. I'll do it off screen. Give me just 1 second. So I'm now back with a hole where it should be. Quite an easy fix, so no big deal. Let's try the retention of the Makro 2 KYDEX. Well, no rattling, no nothing. Really good retention. Actually, it was a bit easier to insert the two into the sheath compared to the one, which is a little bit, you know, requires a little bit more force. But still, I mean, it feels really sturdy, really well made. Yeah. Not sure if I'm gonna go, if I'm gonna go neck carry or if I'm gonna go with a belt loop or if I'm gonna use the clip here. I guess we will just see, but now we know that that the retention and everything is good, so we can just go with whatever we prefer. So if you do like KYDEX sheath over leather sheath, then now you have an option, and a pretty decent option as well. So this is, you know, in terms of accessories, this is what you can pick from. So I think you will be able to find something to your liking. It's now time to do some interesting comparisons. And the most logical one to start with is, of course, comparing the Makro 1 and 2 with their smaller respective versions. So I'm gonna place the Micro one beneath the Makro one, and I'm gonna place the Micro 2 beneath the Makro 2. Now we actually get a pretty good sense of the size here. I mean, the Makro really is a much larger knife than the Micro, but what we are really seeing here is just how small the Micro version is. The Micro version is, I mean, it is a tiny knife. Tiny, yet, you know, capable of performing and doing some knife-related tasks, but it is definitely on the small size. Hence the name, of course. I mean, if I could only own one of these I mean, like going with either the Makro or the Micro, I would pick the Makro because it is to me a much more useful design. The ergos are a lot more, you know, comfortable than the smaller ones. But if space and weight is really a big deal for you, I mean, if you really need a super small knife, then by all means do go with the Micro. I mean, it will cut, it will slice, but you will of course be a bit limited by the blade length, and in terms of ergos, well, there's not a whole lot to hold on to, but it will still work. Let's do some more comparisons here, and I'm gonna remove the Micro 1 and the Micro 2. Next up, we're gonna compare the Makros to a knife or two knives more equal in size, and that is the Viper Knives Beros 1 and 2. I made a review of that knife, or those two knives, perhaps like 1 year ago or something like that. Really nice knives, very comfortable knives. The only issue I had was with one of the KYDEX sheath. There was a bit of rattling, but that is not going to be the focus now. So let's bring out the Beros one, and well, let's start with the Beros one. This is what it looks like, carbon fiber scales, but there are a lot of, just as with the Makro, there are a lot of different handle materials you can go with, or so I remember it at least. So I'm gonna place this one right below the Makro one, and then we have the Beros 2 that I'm gonna place right below the Makro 2. Maybe we should just move them all up a little bit so it doesn't get so crowded. So as you can see, these are more, you know, really much more comparable in size. A bit beefier handle and a bit, well, beefier, a bit wider blades. But in terms of size, I mean, in overall length, they are kind of equal, I would say. And ergos, I really like the ergos of the Beros models. They feel, you know, terrific in hand. They got some great jimping, just, you know, really nice, comfortable knives. So if I compare that now with the Makro, I've got to say that the Makro feels also, I mean, they feel different, but they both feel so incredibly great in hand. I mean, the ergos are top notch. I'm not 100% sure which I like the most, but I will say that both are incredibly comfortable knives, definitely. They all come highly recommended. So this is, a very interesting comparison, size-wise. In terms of, you know, knife-related tasks and capabilities, they are about equal, I would say, as well. So that is the Beros compared to the Makros. So let's get them away here and see if we can find some other small knives to do some comparisons with. Next up, I want to do some comparisons of some RMJ models. So let's start with the Sparrow. Let's place it below the Makro 1. And then we have the RMJ Jackdaw. We can place it below the Makro 2. These are also, well, not super equal in overall length, but still, you know, small knives. And I think that it warrants a interesting comparison of some sort. Nitro V compared to M390. The Viper bearers that we saw before were also M390. Let's do yet another comparison, see what I can find. Next up, we're gonna do a bit of a comparison with Attleboro Dao Tran. I think the knife is called, I might not pronounce it correctly, but that is what I believe it to be called. We can also compare with R8 Tibia. Kind of on the large side, I've got to say. But still, you know, I consider these to be, you know, semi-small fixed blades, so that is why I'm throwing them in. But I mean, yeah, the Tibia, the blade is just, well, it is perhaps not super comparable, but I thought it would be interesting to just, you know, throw it in to the mix to get a, you know, sense of size. So the Attleboro here is 20 CV, which is pretty much the equivalent of M390. And the Tibia, I don't actually remember what it was. Does it say anywhere? I actually don't remember. Interesting. It should have been, you know, stated somewhere on the knife, but I can't find it. Oh well, doesn't really matter. Let's see if I can find something more to compare the knives to. This next comparison is going to be a classic for some people. So it's going to be the TRC Speed Demon. So I'm going to place it in top, no, in the middle of course. And then I'm going to do like this. So the Speed Demon is, well, it is a bit larger, but it is a knife that a lot of people know. So it's gonna be good for you know, getting a sense of the size of the Makro. I think that's it for this comparison segment, and I hope that you have gotten, you know, a feeling of the size of these two knives. Let me try to sum up my thoughts here about the Makro 1 and Makro 2. I did enjoy playing around with the smaller versions, with the Makro 1 and 2, as I enjoy not all, but most of Jesper Voxnäs' designs. I think he has a really good eye for knife designs, be it fixed blades or folders. The Makro was, however, on the smaller side, I mean on the very smallest side. So sizing it up like this, while still, you know, keeping the overall design and materials like M390 and the canvas scales here, I think that was a winning concept. I could actually see myself enjoying a even larger version than the Makro. That being said, I mean, these are really handy knives, great size. They will slice paper, they will slice or cut paracord, leather. You will be able to do some kitchen work with it, as well as some wooden tasks as well. So it is a small, versatile knife with really nice ergos as well. To me, it is, you know, it's just, well, I just mentioned that I could see myself getting one even larger than this one, but truth be told, I mean, in this size range, in this specific size range, I think this is more or less perfection. I mean, in terms of blade length, blade width, blade thickness, overall length, handle design, much as with the Barrows 1 and 2, which I also enjoy. I mean, it's just they perfected something when they went with scaling up the Makro. That must be said. And I also appreciate, the new sheath design, which I think is really, really nice. But I also like the fact that they decided to make a KYDEX system for both the Makro 1 and Makro 2 as well, for those of us that enjoy sometimes carrying a KYDEX system. And also going with, neck leather lace, belt loops, and the Ulti clip, etc. Really bringing in a lot of options for EDC carrying. So overall, this is a winner to me, and I actually like the Makro 2 more than I thought I would. I mean, I always kind of like, standard, or not standard, but more standardized blade shapes like a classic drop point. I mean, there is probably a reason why this is called the Makro 1 and this the Makro 2, because, well, it is probably the go-to model for most people, I would imagine. But this has quite a lot of qualities as well. And as I said in the beginning of this video, I'm not going to say that one knife design is better than the other. It's going to be personal preferences, what you like and what you prefer to work with. Small, handy, comfortable, sharp knives. Great utility tools. Not really sure what more to say. I did mention that there is a bit of a difference in sharpness, that the Makro 2 the Makro 2 is sharper than the Makro 1. But we could see that the Makro 1 could slice through the three types of paper, tomato, paracord, leather, and make some nice feathers as well. So I mean, it doesn't have to be ultra sharp to do that kind of stuff. And I mean, it's not like they make the Makro 2 always sharper than the Makro 1. It's just a bit of a tiny inconsistency. If you buy both knives, it could be that they are equally sharp, or that perhaps the Makro 1 is a sharper knife than the Makro 2. So it's going to be, you don't quite know what you're going to get, but you will get a sharp knife at least. That much I can tell you. So all in all, really nice knife. I do recommend them. If you are debating whether to get the Makro or the Barrows, then that is a bit of a more tricky question, and I if you have the possibility, I would recommend you to try out both knives to see which you find to be more your style. Or you might end up getting both of them or all four of them. I mean, they are nice knives, so whatever you get, you will get a high quality knife. That much I can say. Yeah, I think that's actually going to be the final word. So Makro 1, Makro 2, really nice, small knives, Italian made, Jesper Voxna's design, M390, good stuff.